You're listening to Overhead Story Channel. Enjoy.
I got back from New Haven a full day earlier than planned. No warning. No text. I wanted to surprise her. We'd been married long enough that spontaneity had become rare, and I thought this might be a small spark, something good. I'd scored 2 front-row tickets to her favorite theater troupe performing in Providence that weekend. She mentioned it offhand a month ago, and I'd remembered. I'd even made a dinner reservation. I was smiling when I pulled into our driveway, picturing her reaction. She'd be in sweats, probably curled up on the couch with a book or some trashy reality show playing in the background. I imagined her face lighting up when she saw me at the door. But that's not what happened. The moment I stepped inside, something felt wrong. The air had that too clean scent, like a candle had just been blown out to cover something else. But underneath it, faint and persistent, was something I didn't recognize: cologne. Not her perfume, the soft vanilla and lavender blend she'd worn since college, but something heavier, more masculine. Sharp. I dropped my bag in the hallway and stood still, listening. It was too quiet. Then I noticed the details, the little things that didn't line up. There were 2 wine glasses on the kitchen counter. One of them had a faint lipstick print, but it wasn't the color she normally wore. Hers was usually a pale rose or neutral pink. This was bolder. Darker. Almost red. And the wine, Merlot, wasn't even one she liked. She always said it was too dry for her taste. A blazer, navy with fine checkered stitching, was draped over one of the kitchen chairs. I didn't recognize it. The sleeves were too long for her, the shoulders too broad. Definitely not hers. And definitely not mine. A plate sat in the sink, not cleaned, with the edge of a takeout container tossed beside it. Something Italian. Garlic and tomato still lingered in the air, clashing with the scent of cologne. I called out her name. No answer. Then, from upstairs, the sound of running water. The shower. That made my chest tighten. It was 4:30 in the afternoon. She wasn't supposed to be home yet. And if she was, why hadn't she answered? I walked slowly up the stairs. Every step felt heavier than the last. The air grew warmer as I climbed, humid from the steam pouring out of the half-closed bathroom door. A towel hung over the railing, half-damp. It was mine. The dark teal one I brought back from a work trip to Maine. She always said she didn't like how rough it felt against her skin. So why was it wet? The bathroom door opened before I could knock. She stepped out wrapped in the towel, her hair soaked and clinging to her shoulders. She looked startled, not joyful, not even confused. Startled. Like a student caught looking at someone else's test. "Babe," she said, blinking hard. "You're back early." "Yeah," I said slowly. "I wanted to surprise you." She gave a tight smile. "Well, you did." There was something off in her voice. No warmth. Just a flat, rehearsed tone. I looked past her into the bathroom. 2 toothbrushes. 1 razor. A second damp towel draped over the edge of the tub. Gray, not one of ours. "Whose jacket is downstairs?" I asked. Her gaze flicked away for the briefest moment, then returned. "Oh, Marcy's boyfriend. He came by earlier. They had a quick lunch here before heading out." "Marcy's boyfriend wears men's cologne?" She gave a half laugh. "Yeah, I guess. That must be it. And the wine." She shrugged. "We opened a bottle. I didn't think you'd mind. You don't drink Merlot." She smiled again, too fast. "Trying something new." I walked into the bedroom where the sheets were still rumpled. Not in the casual "I took a nap" way. The kind that spoke to urgency. And there, next to her robe, was another small detail, a pair of socks I didn't recognize. Menswear. Size 11, maybe? I picked them up slowly. "Also Marcy's boyfriend's?" She followed me into the room, crossing her arms. "Why are you acting like this?" I turned. "Like what?" "Like you're interrogating me." "I didn't do anything wrong." I held up the socks. "Then what are these?" She paused. He took off his shoes and socks to relax for a bit. "We were just hanging out." I let that sit there for a second. He got comfortable enough to take off his socks? "Mark," she said, voice rising, "you're blowing this out of proportion. You show up unannounced and start accusing me of what? Having some guy over while I showered?" "I didn't say that." "You didn't have to." The steam from the bathroom still hung in the doorway, and I couldn't shake the image forming in the back of my mind: quick, messy, an asterisk mate. The sounds I didn't hear. The instincts I tried to ignore. "You've never used that towel," I said, quieter now. "You always avoid it." "Said it scratched your skin." She looked away. It was the only one that wasn't in the hamper. I walked back into the hallway, needing space, clarity, anything. Downstairs again, I picked up the wine glasses. One was hers. The other, not. Not unless she'd suddenly taken up wearing a color she always said made her lips look too dramatic. I ran my finger over the rim. The glass was still warm from being recently washed. I could feel the blood pulsing in my ears. The logic in my head was trying to keep me calm, trying to give her the benefit of the doubt. But everything else? Every sense in my body told me the same thing. I was standing inside a lie. She followed me down a minute later, hair now wrapped in a towel. "You're being really weird about this," she said, leaning on the kitchen island. "I found a coat that's not mine, wine you don't like, socks from a man you don't know, and the shower running while you're home alone. That's not weird." She hesitated. I said it was Marcy and her guy. "You can call her if you want." I met her eyes, and for the first time I didn't see my wife. I saw someone trying to convince me I was wrong. Someone building a story on the spot. She kept going, trying to sound casual, defensive but steady. We had a couple glasses. He left. I showered. "That's it. If you're mad I didn't tell you they were coming by, I'm sorry." I didn't think it was a big deal. "It wasn't just them," I said, my voice flat. "It's the way you're saying all this. Like you're reading from a script." That one hit. She blinked and turned away, fiddling with the drawer where we kept keys and mail. "Nothing happened, Mark," she said finally. And maybe that was true. Maybe nothing happened. But as I stood there in the house we'd shared for 6 years, I realized something worse than betrayal had crept in. Doubt. She returned to the couch and picked up her phone as if the conversation was over. As if I dropped the topic and we'd moved on. But we hadn't. And I couldn't. Because nothing about that afternoon felt normal. Nothing about her felt like the woman I'd come home to surprise. Something had shifted, and whether or not she wanted to admit it, the cracks were already forming. The next morning I woke up before the sun. I hadn't really slept. My mind kept spinning on a loop, stuck on the details from the night before, the wine, the jacket, the shower, that towel she supposedly didn't like. I kept thinking, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe there's an explanation. But doubt doesn't go back to sleep once it's awake. She was already in the kitchen when I came down. French press on the counter, scrambled eggs on the stove, like she was trying to paint a picture of normal. She wore a hoodie, hair in a bun, no makeup. Comfortable. Familiar. Except none of it felt real. "Morning," she said, like nothing had happened. I forced a smile. "Hey." She didn't mention the awkwardness, the questions I asked the night before. She didn't explain anything further. And maybe that was the biggest red flag. She wasn't trying to clear the air. She was trying to bury it. That whole day I walked through a fog of second-guessing. It wasn't just yesterday. It was the last few months. How she'd started taking evening fitness classes when she used to groan at the idea of cardio. How she came home late, hair damp, energy strangely high or oddly drained. How she'd shower and go straight to bed without really talking. Then there was the phone. Her phone used to live on the coffee table or kitchen counter, half-charged and ignored. Now it was always on her. Always face down. Locked. And when it buzzed, she'd tilt the screen away or hit the side button before I could see anything. I didn't want to snoop. I never thought I'd be that guy. But something inside me itched, the kind of itch that doesn't go away until you acknowledge it. That night, she left her phone in the bathroom while brushing her teeth. I didn't touch it. But the screen lit up. A message preview. "MJ, same time Friday? Can't stop thinking about you." My chest tightened. The name meant nothing to me. We didn't know any MJs. I waited for her to come back into the room, watched how quickly she grabbed the phone, how her thumb moved fast over the screen, unlock, delete, clear. I didn't say anything. Not yet. I needed more. I started watching. Not accusing. Just noting. Tuesday evening, I checked the trunk of her car while she was in the shower. I don't know what I expected. But under the floor panel, behind the emergency kit, was a small, gift-wrapped box. Inside, a men's watch. Black leather band. Tag still attached. There was no birthday coming up. No brother's visit. No anniversary. I put it back exactly how I found it. Later that week, I noticed a new pair of men's shoes in our closet. Not mine. Size 11. Brown Oxfords, the kind you don't just buy on impulse. I asked her casually. "Those aren't mine." "Whose are they?" She didn't miss a beat. "My brother's. He stayed over last weekend." "Your brother with the fractured foot?" She hesitated just slightly. "Yeah, but he only wears the boot outside. He likes real shoes around the house." I said nothing. Let the lie hang. It got worse. She started taking weekend trips. At first it was visiting her aunt in Groton. Then it changed to her aunt's clinic in Westbrook. Then it became vague, "I just need to get away for a bit." I asked if she wanted company. She'd always say, "You be bored. It's just errands and catching up." I didn't argue. But I started writing things down. Times. Dates. Destinations. And one day I checked the GPS history on her car. She didn't clear it like she did her browser. One pin stood out, a hotel lot in Westbrook. Not near her aunt's clinic. Not near anything. I googled the hotel. Boutique style. Mid-range. One of those quiet places with weekly rates and minimal questions. That's when I started documenting everything. I made a spreadsheet. I know how insane that sounds. But I needed to know I wasn't losing my mind. I cross-referenced gym check-ins with her credit card statements. Not once had she charged a class. No monthly fee, no class pass, not even parking near the gym she claimed to go to. I noted times she said she was stuck in traffic, matched them to location pings on her photos, to the timestamps on Uber receipts she didn't know I could see. The lies weren't just random. They had shape, rhythm, choreography. It was like piecing together a jigsaw puzzle, and every piece said the same thing: you're not crazy. You're not imagining this. You're not wrong. Still, I didn't confront her. I wasn't ready. Because once you say it out loud, once you put that truth between you, it becomes real. And real meant the beginning of the end. Instead, I became quiet. I stopped asking where she was going. I stopped texting to check in. I let her build her lie without resistance. And maybe that's what made her careless. One night, she left her gym bag by the laundry. She was in the shower. I opened it. Inside, a receipt from a rooftop bar. 2 cocktails. 1 appetizer. A time that overlapped with the core training session she claimed she had that night. And another gift box. This one opened. Empty now. No tag, no note. Just the box. I put it all back. Then I looked at her. Not literally, figuratively. I looked at who she had become in the past year. She used to laugh freely. Now it was measured. Reserved. She used to sit close to me on the couch. Now there was always a pillow between us. Her affection was selective. Her body with me, but her energy elsewhere. Sometimes she'd kiss me out of habit and pull away like she remembered something mid-motion. I couldn't remember the last time she asked how I was doing. I don't mean in a casual, offhand way, I mean really asked. Looked me in the eyes and listened. I started wondering if she was in love. Not with me, but with the life she was building in secret. The person on the other end of the messages from MJ. The one getting the gifts. The one who met her in hotel parking lots and laughed with her over drinks while I reheated dinner for one. One Saturday, I drove to the hotel in Westbrook. Just to see it. Just to stand in the parking lot. And when I stood there, surrounded by cracked pavement and flickering neon signage, I realized something. She didn't even try that hard to hide it. Not really. It wasn't that she was good at lying, it was that she counted on me not to notice. Or worse, she thought I'd notice and stay anyway. That was the moment the anger stopped being abstract. It settled into something colder. Not rage, but resolve. I wasn't going to confront her just to hear her spin another story. I was going to confirm everything first. And then, when it was time, I'd make sure the truth didn't just show up at the door. It would knock the whole damn house down. It was a Friday night when everything I'd been tracking finally pointed to one place. No wild theories. No loose ends. Just facts. She told me she'd be at her aunt's clinic again, helping with patient intake. She even kissed me goodbye that morning, her tone extra sweet, like she was trying to sprinkle sugar over gasoline. But I knew better. I left work a few hours early, heart thumping the entire drive home. The kind of rhythm you feel in your fingertips. I parked 2 blocks away from our house. Didn't want her to see the car. Didn't want him to either. I waited until the sun had dipped low enough that streetlights were starting to flicker on. Then I walked slowly, casually, like a neighbor out for a stroll. Except every footstep felt heavy, deliberate. When I reached our street, I stayed on the sidewalk across from the house. Our second-story bedroom lights were on. Not the bright overhead ones. No, these were softer. Lamps. The kind of lighting you use when you want to feel comfortable. When you don't want to be seen. But the curtains were open just enough. I crept along the hedge bordering Mrs. Doyle's yard next door. I could hear faint sounds from inside. Music playing upstairs. The muffled echo of laughter. 2 voices. One was hers. The other didn't belong to me. I felt my stomach twist. The kind of twist that goes beyond nerves. It was grief tightening around my ribs like a belt. I knelt behind the hedge and waited. Listened. More laughter. Water running. The shower. Played out like a cliché. Like something you'd see on a trashy drama show. Except this wasn't TV. This was my house. My bedroom. My wife. I stepped out from the hedge and crossed the lawn in the dark. The backyard light wasn't on, which gave me cover. I knew every creak in the porch, every loose tile. I moved like I was tiptoeing through someone else's life. I didn't go inside. Not yet. Instead, I slipped into the shadows at the side of the house, under the open bedroom window. The second floor had a shallow roof ledge under the window from a remodel we did 2 summers ago. That window was cracked open, and I heard him. "I've missed this," he said, voice low, close. She laughed softly. "We're getting too bold." "No one's home," he said. "You said he was gone all weekend." "He is." I closed my eyes. For a second, I actually wanted to disappear, to rewind time. But reality doesn't bend just because you want it to. Something shifted above me, movement. I looked up just in time to see a figure at the window. A man, barefoot, shirtless. His hands gripped the frame. He looked around, scanning the yard. And then, without a word, he climbed out. Just like that. No panic, no hesitation. Like it was routine. He landed on the lawn 10 feet in front of me. I held still in the shadow. My heart was hammering so loud I thought he'd hear it. He turned, glanced toward the driveway, then sprinted off down the street. I didn't move. Not yet. Because inside the house, my house, she was still up there. Still inside our bedroom. Still standing in the ruins of what I had built with her. When I finally walked in through the back door, everything hit at once. There were 2 wine glasses on the nightstand. One still had wine in it. Her phone lay face down on the floor. A men's coat hung on the same hook where I kept my hoodies. One of his socks was by the dresser. The smell in the room was unmistakable. Cologne. Not mine. She was still in the bathroom. The water now quiet, steam slipping out through the crack in the door. I looked around, stunned by how ordinary everything looked. How you could miss so much if you didn't know what to look for. On the dresser there was a folded note. Neat handwriting. Not mine. It read, "Just us. Friday. I'm ready." That's when I stopped feeling surprised. When she finally stepped out, wrapped in one of my old towels. One I hadn't seen her use in months. Her hair was still wet, her skin flushed. She saw me standing there, and she froze. I'll never forget her face. Not guilt. Not shock. Not fear. Just blank. Like she was waiting to see how I'd react so she could figure out her next move. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. I didn't speak. I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. I just stared at her, holding the note between my fingers like a receipt for everything she had taken. She tried to smile. I watched it die before it reached her eyes. She finally said, "You're not supposed to be here." "I know," I said. "That's what made it work so well." She took a step toward me, but I held up the note. "Don't," I said. Her eyes started to water. "Mark, wait. I can explain." "No," I said, voice low. "You really can't." And I meant it. Because whatever she said now would be fabrication. Damage control. The truth wasn't in her words. It was in the scent of another man's skin on her, in the way he had to climb out the window, in the wine and the lights and the soft music that wasn't playing for me. It was in the planning. The preparation. This wasn't a spontaneous mistake. This wasn't an emotional breakdown or a moment of weakness. This was architecture. She had built this. Deliberately. Carefully. Under the same roof we used to call safe. I left the note on the nightstand. Didn't pack a bag. Didn't slam any doors. I just turned and walked down the stairs, past our wedding photo, past the fridge magnets from our trips, past the spot where she once told me she couldn't wait to grow old with me. By the time I reached the front door, I felt nothing. Not yet. That would come later. I didn't drive far. Just enough to breathe. Enough to stare at the stars through the windshield and try to remember the version of her that used to make me feel like I was home. But that version was gone. Maybe she'd been gone for longer than I wanted to admit. Maybe I'd been holding on to someone who had already checked out. I sat there in the dark, gripping the steering wheel like it could anchor me to something. But I was adrift now, floating in the silence she left behind. That night, I didn't go back. I didn't answer her calls. I didn't reply to her texts. Because for the first time, I wasn't interested in what she had to say. I already knew everything I needed to know. I didn't sleep at home that night. I didn't even consider it. I drove until I hit the outskirts of Milford, pulled into a roadside motel, and handed over my credit card like a ghost. The woman behind the desk asked if I wanted a smoking or non-smoking room. I said I didn't care. She handed me a key card and pointed toward a stairwell. The room was beige and stiff. Curtains that hadn't moved in years, a bed that creaked when I dropped my bag onto it. But it was quiet. And for the first time in what felt like months, the silence didn't come with the feeling of being watched, lied to, or placated. I sat on the edge of the bed for a long time, still in the clothes I'd left the house in. Didn't turn on the TV. Didn't check my phone. Just sat there, staring at the blank wall in front of me like it might answer a question I hadn't figured out how to ask. Morning came with no dreams, just exhaustion. But I knew what I had to do next. At 9 a.m., I was sitting across from a lawyer in a dimly lit office 2 floors above a pizza joint. Her name was Adrienne. She had a reputation for being meticulous, practical, and quiet, the kind of person who didn't ask twice when you said, "No, I don't want to try counseling." I laid it all out. The patterns. The photos. The man who leapt out my bedroom window like it was a fire escape. The note. The timeline I'd built down to the hour. She didn't blink. Just took notes and nodded. "We'll start with asset protection," she said calmly. "Do you have joint bank accounts? 3. Change passwords, lock transfers. Today. Do you share property? The house. 2 vehicles. One in her name, one in mine." She handed me a folder. "You'll need to get the title copies. If she contests the separation, we'll be ready. If she doesn't, this will be quick." I signed the paperwork without hesitation. It felt strange, so clinical, but also grounding. Every signature felt like a piece of scaffolding I was building under myself so I wouldn't fall apart. By noon, I had new bank credentials, my personal savings moved into a separate account, and my phone plan separated. I even changed the passcode on the garage keypad. Not because I thought she'd steal anything, but because I didn't want her having access to my life anymore. When I pulled back into our driveway later that afternoon, the house looked the same. Same porch light, same hydrangeas by the mailbox. But I didn't feel like it belonged to me anymore. I walked in through the front door. She was in the kitchen. She turned around like nothing had happened. Like the man who escaped through our window hadn't existed. Like I hadn't stood in that bedroom last night and seen the truth unfold piece by piece without a single word from her. She smiled. "You're back." I didn't answer. She poured coffee, slid a mug across the counter toward me, and asked, "Want toast?" I stared at her like I was watching a stranger try to mimic my wife's movements. I didn't take the coffee. Didn't touch the counter. Just said I met with a lawyer. She paused, one hand still on the toaster lever. "Already?" I had the time. She nodded, looked down at the mug, then added cream like she was following a recipe for denial. "I didn't think you'd leave," she said after a moment. "I didn't think you'd lie for months." She didn't answer that. I walked past her into the hallway. The same hallway where I first noticed the cologne that didn't belong. Where the wine glasses had been. Where the lies had begged *N to stack themselves in neat little rows. She didn't follow me. That night, I didn't sleep in our bedroom. I moved a few of my things into the study downstairs, just enough to get by. A pillow, a blanket, a charger. I didn't speak much. Didn't eat with her. She stopped trying to act like everything was normal by the second day. We were 2 people coexisting in a space we no longer shared. She still made coffee every morning. Still folded laundry. Still played the role. But something about her had changed too. She moved through the house more slowly, like she was walking through a version of it that had already crumbled. Her smiles, when she tried them, had no direction. No target. She began texting less. Or at least less obviously. Her phone stopped buzzing. Her gym bag stayed in the closet. Her trips to the clinic suddenly stopped altogether. She was always home. Always quiet. I think she thought silence would fix things. That if she just stopped talking, stopped explaining, stopped pushing, I'd eventually reset. But silence wasn't a solution. It was a verdict. By the 3rd day, we stopped pretending entirely. She stayed in the bedroom. I stayed in the study. We passed each other like coworkers at a job neither of us liked anymore. I started sleeping with the door locked. Not because I was afraid of her, but because I didn't want her coming in and making another speech. Telling me again that it wasn't serious. That it was a mistake. That she didn't mean for things to go this far. She had meant it. Maybe not in the beginning, but she had chosen it. Over and over again. One night, maybe a week after everything broke open, I came home from a walk to find her crying on the floor of the bedroom. Just sitting there, knees pulled to her chest. She didn't look up. Didn't try to draw me in. And for the first time, I didn't feel anything. No urge to comfort her. No anger. Just nothing. I went back downstairs. Turned on a podcast. Ate leftover rice in silence. By the end of that week, the house had become divided. An invisible line ran through it. She stayed upstairs. I stayed below. There were no rules, no conversation, just this unspoken agreement that we wouldn't collide unless we absolutely had to. Even the dog, our rescue mutt, Jasper, seemed to pick up on it. He'd sleep in the hallway between us, tail flicking nervously like he couldn't decide which of us still had a home. I spent my evenings reorganizing everything I could control. Cabinets, filing drawers, garage shelves. Things I'd ignored for years now became my therapy. Something about stacking objects in neat rows helped push back against the emotional chaos. I found our wedding album one night, stuffed behind the board games in the hallway closet. I flipped through it slowly. There she was, smiling so wide her cheeks almost folded over her eyes. There I was, grinning like an idiot, holding her hand like I'd just been given the most precious thing in the world. I closed it after 10 pages and put it in a donation box. Not because I was angry, but because it didn't feel like us anymore. It felt like people I used to know. One morning, I heard her whispering on the phone before sunrise. I don't know who she was talking to. Maybe a friend. Maybe him. Her voice cracked when she said, "He's not speaking to me anymore. Not even to fight." Later that day, I got a text from her. Just one line. "Are we going to talk about this?" I stared at the screen for a long time. Then typed back. "We already did." With our actions. No reply. That was the last time she reached out for a while. And that was fine with me. I wasn't ready to rebuild. I was still watching the wreckage settle. The quiet between us didn't mean nothing was happening. It just meant whatever was happening now lived underground, buried in shadows. I'd stopped asking questions, but that didn't mean I'd stopped paying attention. It started with a withdrawal slip I found tucked between her old receipts on the desk. I wasn't snooping. Not exactly. I'd been pulling paperwork for the lawyer, bank records, joint investments, anything tied to both our names. I opened the drawer we both used for mail, and there it was, folded once like she meant to throw it away but hadn't. A withdrawal of $11,000. Labeled, Friend's Home Repair. The date was 2 weeks before I caught her. My eyebrows raised, but I said nothing. Just took a photo and added it to the folder I'd been building. That evening, while she was upstairs, I called the friend she named. Andrea. Someone from college she occasionally saw for brunch. I hadn't spoken to her in years. She picked up on the second ring. "Hey, Mark? Everything okay?" "I just had a quick question," I said. "Did Emily help you out recently with a repair? Like, financially?" There was a pause. Then laughter. "God, no. I'm not even in town. We moved to Seattle last year." "Why?" "No reason," I said. "Thanks." She hung up still confused, but I didn't owe her the whole story. A week later, I found another transfer in our account history. This one smaller, $4,900 tagged under photo shoot. There hadn't been any photos taken. No sessions booked. No camera purchases. Nothing even remotely artistic about our lives lately. I printed that too. When I asked the bank to give me a statement showing outbound transfers from the last 3 months, I noticed a pattern. Nearly every transfer above a few $100s was going to the same place, a small LLC account registered under a generic-sounding company name out of Brantford. A company neither of us had ever mentioned. It wasn't hers. It sure as hell wasn't mine. But it came up 5 separate times. 5 different withdrawals. All in amounts carefully below reporting thresholds. All within the last 45 days. I circled the name, highlighted the line, and brought it to Adrian, my lawyer. She scanned the page slowly, then looked up at me. "This looks structured. Intentional. You have reason to believe she's hiding money or funneling it out for someone else." "I think she's being manipulated," I said. "Or helping someone." Adrian frowned. "Same thing at a certain point." I sat back in the chair. "Could this be fraud?" She nodded. "Potentially. Especially if marital funds are being redirected without consent." I gave her the folder. Every receipt, every note, every financial move that felt even slightly off. She promised to file the necessary disclosures. That night, back at the house, she was already in bed when I got in. Door closed. Light off. But her phone was charging on the kitchen counter. Unlocked. Open to a screen showing a chat with someone named Jay. No last name. No profile photo. Just an initial. I shouldn't have looked. But I did. Scrolling back, the messages were riddled with coded language, vague references, and occasional slips, mentions of when we have our land, when this clears, once the money settles. One message stood out. "You're not alone. You deserve horses and space and peace. Let me give you that." I felt sick reading it. Another said, "Make sure it's under 5K at a time. We don't need flags right now. You're doing great." I took **TS and emailed them to myself. The next morning, she avoided me again. We'd reached the stage of our collapse where interaction wasn't just painful, it was impractical. Like trying to operate a machine that didn't turn on anymore. But something in her had shifted. She no longer met my eyes. Not in the hallway. Not in the kitchen. Not even when she asked, out of nowhere, "Have you spoken to anyone? About what's going on?" I didn't answer. She didn't press. I think she knew something was unraveling. Maybe not everything, but enough to make her squirm in her silence. She started leaving the house for long stretches of time. Always vague about where she was going. Errands. Groceries. Meeting a friend. Once, I watched her pull out of the driveway and drive in a full circle around the neighborhood before heading in the opposite direction. Like she thought someone might be following her. Paranoia. Or training. I couldn't tell which. She came back hours later with nothing in her hands. No bags. No receipts. Just tension in her shoulders and a tiredness she didn't try to explain. I started tracking the car again. Same location kept showing up, a warehouse district on the edge of West Haven. No stores. No clinics. Just distribution centers and industrial fencing. Whatever was happening had graduated from emotional betrayal into something colder. Sharper. This wasn't just about romance anymore. This was business. And she was either too naive to see it or too far in to stop. One night, I asked her outright, "Do you know who's been receiving the money from our account?" She looked at me like I'd spoken in a different language. "What money?" I didn't flinch. "The $11,000. The $4,900. The rest." She turned pale. "You've been checking our records? It's our account." She took a step back. "It's not what you think." "Then tell me what it is." She opened her mouth. Closed it again. Her lips moved like she was chewing on 100 different excuses, but none would come out. She finally said, "It's complicated." "No," I said. "It's very simple. Either you're in on it or you're being used." Tears filled her eyes, but I wasn't moved. She looked like a person who had finally realized the hole she was in wasn't shallow. She didn't sleep in the bedroom that night. Didn't come down for coffee the next morning. The air between us had gone past cold. It had gone still. Not dead. Not yet. But waiting. Waiting for something to break it apart completely. I kept my folder close. Kept documenting. Because whether this ended in a courtroom, a bank investigation, or something else entirely, I wanted to make sure the truth wasn't just felt. It was proven. A week after uncovering the financial trail, I got a call I wasn't expecting. Her name was Molly. Her voice was calm but tired. Like someone who'd told her story too many times already. She asked if I was married to Emily, then apologized before I even answered. "I know this is strange," she said, "but I think we've both been caught in the same man's web." At first, I didn't understand. She wasn't talking about Emily. She was talking about the man I'd seen leap from our bedroom window. His real name was Travis Dale. Not Jay. Not MJ. Not any of the names he used in the messages. She told me Travis had a long pattern. 3 states. Multiple women. Same tactics, charm, fantasy, promises. Then the requests. Small at first, cash for his startup, fake medical bills, fake investment tips. He always insisted on untraceable transfers, vague company names. Always emotionally entangled. Always just convincing enough. Molly had been married to him once. She'd filed for annulment after he disappeared with $20,000 from her accounts. "I found your number through legal records," she said. "I saw the LLC transfers. They match his other aliases. You're not the first." The room spun for a second. Not because I was surprised, but because deep down I already knew. I just hadn't connected the final dots. That night I confronted Emily. She didn't lie. She didn't even try. She broke. "I knew him as Jackson," she whispered. "He told me I deserved better. He said he was building a house for us. A life." I believed him. I sent him money because I thought I was escaping. I didn't shout. I didn't accuse. I just listened. Not because I forgave her, but because, for once, she was speaking the truth. Her betrayal hadn't been an affair. It was an investment. A full-body leap into someone else's dream. And she had thrown everything we built together into that fantasy. When she finished talking, I just nodded. And walked out of the room. I wasn't angry anymore. I was done. With verified fraud in hand, Adrian moved quickly. We filed for immediate financial separation and requested a freeze on shared assets. Emily didn't fight it. She didn't have the energy or the standing. Everything was on record now, the transfers, the messages, the identity trail. She stopped speaking entirely. She moved through the house like a ghost. No more texting. No more fake appointments. Her days were spent scrolling through forums about emotional abuse, narcissists, manipulation. I saw the tabs open on her laptop once. How to rebuild after being scammed, signs you've been groomed. She wasn't looking to fix us. She was looking for herself. I didn't interfere. There were no arguments. No, let's talk. My silence became the boundary she finally respected. 2 weeks later, my sister sent me a photo she found while clearing her cloud storage, an old image from a wedding lounge 2 years ago. In it, Emily was laughing with a man I didn't recognize. But I did now. It was him. Travis. Jackson. MJ. Whoever. The timestamp? The same weekend she'd told me she was visiting her grandmother out of state. I stared at the photo, not in shock, but with a strange calm. Then I deleted it. It didn't matter anymore. That night, I packed a single suitcase. Left the house key on the counter. Didn't leave a note. Didn't slam the door. I drove south until the highway curved along the coast and the ocean came into view. I stopped in a quiet town where no one knew my name. I found a small apartment near the water. Rented it for 6 months. It was the same town where, years ago, I had proposed. Now it was something else entirely. A place to start over. I spent my mornings walking the beach alone. My afternoons reading. I stopped checking my phone unless it rang. I stopped wondering how she was doing. Stopped looking at bank records, browser history, timelines. There was nothing left to chase. No rescue. No revenge. Just space. And that was enough.